Okay, I have 22 planks on at this point, so I've got 11 on each side, um, and it's starting to shape up to look more like a boat, I guess. Um, so some things I'm running into now is while I have a ton of clamps, the side wall is starting to get to be too long for some of them, and since I'm using a stapleless construction, I'm kind of struggling a little bit to keep it pressed tightly up against the form, so I'm using some of those shorter clamps now to do, that to kind of hold it closer to the hole, or to the mold, I guess. And I've started to use these bungee cords to help compress where I would have probably normally used a clamp. I'm also using these holders. They're just basically an L-shaped piece of wood pressed down on a scrap of the planking to kind of push down and hold it in place without wrecking the bead. So on some of the places I was unable to use a scrap to protect the cove here. So I'm kind of careful as to how how much pressure I'm putting and how much I'm trying to slide those bungees around the, that cove, because I don't really want to wreck that, although it's, taking kind of a beating as I go, because, the planks pop out of place or whatever, and they sort of rip off that little very fine, cove. I don't know if you can see that there or not, but anyhow, I mean it's really fine, and it'll fray right off of there with the grain of the wood. So anyhow, so these actually are working out pretty well, and I'll probably end up using more of them as I go, because again, like I said, I'm running out of my shorter clamp, or my capacity for my shorter clamps, like this quick grip clamp, and I don't know how much, obviously, like this one, for instance, we're gonna run out within a couple of more planks. And anyhow, so starting to use these bungee cords. It seems to be working pretty good. I would highly caution anyone who is doing that or wants to try that to wear safety glasses, because these hooks are heavy and pretty dangerous, and if they let loose, if you don't get them hooked on real firmly, and they let loose or something, they could hit you in the eye and take your eye right out. So highly caution you against doing that without safety glasses. And you can see I've hooked them right through those holes, to keep, to be pretty sure that they aren't going to come loose. And I think that's important, that you really exercise as much caution as you can while you're putting them in place. The other thing I'm noticing is when I don't have something like this one here, holding it against the mold, and I have one like this one pulling down on these curves, it sort of pushes the wall of the boat out. So you got to kind of watch that, and if you see that it's doing that too much, try and put a clamp on like this one where you're pushing it back in. At some point, the glue and the number of planks that you put on will, help hold that all in place as it's going around the curve. But it's one of those things that you just got to be really aware of it. See how that's sort of flexing in a little bit as I'm you know, pressing on it. So, you know, you want to be really aware of that, and, you know, make sure you're fairly tight to the edge of the mold. You know, the other thing that I did is I have this UHMW plastic, they call it. So it's ultra high modulus weight plastic. And I use it for some, you know, jigs and fixtures, you know, like zero clearance insert for my dado blade on my table saw and things like that. And I just had it kind of laying around the shop for, you know, long time, you know, 10 years or so. And so I thought, well, you know what, I'm going to take and screw those to the bottom of a few of my stations here where the shear line is, you know, fairly level. And that's what it's going to set upon. And the reason for that is, you know, the glue is not going to stick to that plastic. So it gives me a decent base to, you know, have the bulk of the weight of the canoe sit on, you know, while it's being, you know, there's some force coming down on this. So it's just sort of holding that all in place without having to worry about it, you know, sticking to this. So I've done that in just, I think 4 positions. Maybe 4 or 5 positions anyhow on each side. Yeah, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. So anyhow, so that seems to have really helped with holding things up and in place. You know, and as I'm moving into these, you know, more serious bends, you know, you're seeing more, you know, separation along the lines where the planks come together. And a lot of that will come out with sanding. Some of it might have to be filled with a filler. You know, but you really want to watch that pretty closely so that you don't actually have a gap where you, like, you know, can get light through it. You know, and of course, if it's a gap on the outside, it's going to be tighter on the inside. But anyhow, once I get maybe the next couple rows on this bend here, I'll probably start taking these off on the bottom, these clamps on the bottom, just because, you know, the hole will be supported by the curve of the molds, and it won't be as necessary down here to hold that up. Now, it does, you know, hold it in to the mold again, like I was talking about. So I probably will move that maybe in more to some of these where, you know, there's more of a bend or curve to the hull. You know, and you know, I'm getting a lot of, you know, sort of spring back in this area, for instance, and I can feel that it's a little bit, you know, wavy in here. So I've added these big carpentry clamps for glue up, and I don't like them so much because they don't sit exactly flush, and they have pretty hard edges on them, so they do leave marks on the hull of the boat, and I'm, you know, maybe probably have to steam those out later, or try to steam them out later, after I go through my first you know, sanding, I think. So if they're still there after the first sanding. So anyhow, so you can see more of those bungees, you know, and I'm gonna think about how I can use those more as I progress, because like I said, you know, you saw on the other side a lot of those quick grip clamps that are, you know, going vertical. Well, I just simply ran out. I've got you know, 3 of them on this side, where I have, I don't know, 6 or 7 on the other side. And I like to do 1 plank on each side. I'd like to try and get 2 at a time on each side, but I just haven't really, especially in this curve, it really wants to spring back. So so we'll just plod along at 1 at a time. The the gaps though are really being held together, with these bungees on this side. So I'm pretty happy with the way that's working. That section right there, has a pretty serious bend going on in it, and they seem to be there's a gap there, but it's pressed together pretty good where in this straighter area. All right, so the other thing that I was doing, and you can see it with these top couple planks, is I'm just cutting them off with a Japanese saw, a pull saw. And so today I actually took my oscillating saw and just cut it a little bit closer to the actual shape of the stem. And I think what I will, and you can see it's a whole lot cleaner cut, in terms of, things flaking and scrapping away than if I'm using my handsaw. So, what I will end up doing with the rest of this is I will probably run the power planer over it until I get very close to the stem. And this is pretty close here, but, until I get real close to the stem and the shape of the stem. And then, I'll watch these lines here to make sure I don't take them away, and because that would mean I'm right on the stem. And then I'm probably use the belt sander to just do a final smoothing out, so that it's ready to accept the external stems. And again, you can see the stems and how I've cut them down, and of course that's a lot bigger than 1/8 of an inch. It's actually 7/16 of an inch. And then it goes up to its full width up here. And that's because as I'm going, every 2 or 3 planks, I'm getting out the spoke shave and chisel and hand block plane, and I'm holding a batten up here to see how flush. There shouldn't be any gap. As you can see here, there's really no gap between the planking and the stem, so it's going to glue up, pretty good there. But anyhow, that angle is going to start to change now as I'm moving up this curve. And then once I get into this sort of flatter part, I would expect that angle to be, a lot shallower of an angle. You can see how very steep it is down here, but that's going to start to change in this area. And then when I get up to the top, I would expect it's really just going to be this, I don't know, about 1/4 of an inch. It's a little less than that, I think, but I think it's 7/16 of an inch. Or actually, no, I think it's 7/32 of an inch. Anyhow, so it'll change and then hopefully mimic the angle of the number 6 mold, as it flattens out along the top edge. Anyhow, so that's the theory, and we're just going to keep planking away until we run out of planks, which is, maybe today. Although I'm only getting, 4 or 5 a day on each side. So like I said, I'm up to, I think 22 planks, which means I have 11 done on each side. So I think there are, 38 full-length planks and maybe 4 14-foot planks that I have right now. So you can tell that I'm going to run out. So but we want to see how far we get, and then I can estimate how much more I need to finish it out, and then I'll have to go back and do some milling, which does take a lot of time, but you know, I kind of did it on purpose. As you know, I started, if you've been following the series, I started with a piece of rescued, or several pieces of rescued western red cedar, and some rescued hardwoods, and because that cedar was so knotty, you know, I wasn't able to get as much as I'd like, you know, out of it. So I bought some clear western red cedar at the lumberyard, and you know, that's been the majority of the planking that I've been doing. So you know, it's I think turning out pretty nice. I like the way that you can't really tell so much with all this glue residue on here, but I do like the way, and I'm trying to really be cognizant of, you know, matching the as close as I can, anyhow, the color and grain of the planks on, you know, mirror images on the sides of the hulls. So, you know, where you have a, you know, a lighter sapwood colored, you know, one on this side, it's also going to be on that side. And some of these, you know, pinker hues, you know, are going to be over here, and some of these browner hues, you know, are going to also be over there. And, you know, I think that's starting to, you know, show up pretty nicely in the way the hull's coming together. So anyhow, that takes a little bit of thought as you're, you know, doing it. I stacked all mine, you know, down here in the order that I wanted to apply them, and I taped them all together so that they weren't, you know, getting banged around and everything. And that was probably a mistake. I probably should have tied them together or something, because as soon as I took the tape off, that, you know, the tape still stuck to some of the edges, and boom, my stacks just fell down. So so I'm you know, kind of picking, you know, the best I can, the way that they, you know, are laid out and look. And the other thing I'm trying to do, as you can see here, is a scarf joint, and there's one up here. Those are a little probably closer than I'd like in terms of staggering them, but for the most part, I'm staggering those joints wherever I can. So, you know, there's one here, there's one here, there's one here.